Only 14 in every 100 traders actually pass their evaluation. And of those who pass, only 20 to 45% actually end up taking payouts. And quite honestly, I was a part of that same statistic. I was stuck in the cycle of passing evals, getting close every single time, but eventually blowing my account before I could actually take that payout. And it wasn't until I discovered what I'm about to be showing you that I was able to start taking payouts more consistently and also convert my funded account into a live account on my funded futures. I'll be going through the exact 9-step roadmap that I'd use if I was starting from zero so that you can get to where I'm at in less than half the time. So for step number 1, you want to have a max risk budget for how much you're willing to allocate into evaluations and just investing into prop firms. For example, some people might have a budget of around $2,000. And this is super important because it caps your downside. So you want to think of trading prop firms almost as if it's a trade itself. So what do I mean by that? I mean, when you enter a trade, you have a stop loss so that you know how much you can lose. And that's the same thing as having a max risk budget for prop firms so that you know how much you can afford to be losing. And this is sort of also like, whenever you enter the casino, you should have a maximum budget for what you are willing to risk in that particular day. And lastly, this is how we are going to be planning our risk when we are creating our own prop firm plan. The second step is we're going to be tracking our trading edge statistics. Everyone has their own different ways of trading prop firms. Some take the exact strategy that they use for live and they try that out on prop firm. And each one of those has different trade frequencies, average winner, average loser R, and different win rates. So we want to dial in and know what we are working with, and then we form our plan around that. So for example, in trade frequency, it can be once per day. And then for our average win, it can be something like 2R, so we make 2 times as much as we risk. And lastly, for our win rate, we can keep it something as simple as 50%. So this example is going to be the statistics that we are going to be using throughout the process of this roadmap. Of course, you can just plug in your own exact statistics and then everything else should work the exact same. So step number 3, you want to pick an account that is favorable to your statistics. And in general, depending on the strategy that you choose, some accounts just can be a lot more suited towards your strategy. So again, too many variables to actually cover. However, in general, if you do have more of a scalping style where your green days are a lot more frequent, then you can look at something along the lines of a capped winning day. So what that look like is a fund will have something like 5 days of $150 or more. And after that, then you can take a payout of 50%. So accounts that are like this are pretty favorable just because you are already trading so frequently that something like 5 green days, you can probably get that in a single week, if not maximum like 2 weeks. And then if you have large winning days, so this means if you have Rs that are closer to 3R or even all the way up to like 5R, just something where your wins are a lot bigger than your losses, then it's good to look for accounts that have buffer requirements, but they don't really require a set number of winning days. So for example, once you get your account balance to around $2,000 and then the drawdown gets locked at $0, you have this buffer up here. So that means that everything above $2,000 is actual profit that you can withdraw. And again, this is super helpful because those who have higher risk to reward and lower win rate, when they have a huge win, let's say that their account balance is at 2,000 and then they hit like a 5R, that account balance can grow all the way up to something like $5,000. And then from that single trade, you can withdraw what? $3,000. So that is why it's super helpful for accounts with high R. Just look for ones that don't have high consistency rules. And also you want to look for ones that give you a lot of flexibility to take out payouts above that buffer requirement. Now for step number 4, we are going to be calculating our risk of ruin with AI, or we're basically going to be talking about our expectancy. And the reason why this is so important is because we want to know if there's an actual profitable edge trading with prop firms. In order to actually calculate your expectancy, you have to know a few things, such as your strategy's win rate, its average R, and lastly, how much are you risking per trade? And in order to make this super, super simple, if you have something along the lines of a 50% win rate, I recommend that you take your drawdown and then divide it by 4. So if you have a $2,000 drawdown, you divide it by 4, and then you'd be risking about $500 per trade. If you have something along the lines of a 70% win rate, I would take that drawdown and then divide it by something like 2. So that same thing, we get about $2,000 divided by 2, and our risk per trade can be something like $1,000. And if you have a slightly lower win rate, something along the lines of 30 to maybe 40%, then I would do something along the lines of about 6 trades. So whatever the drawdown is, so $2,000 divided by 6 can be somewhere around maybe $300. And the reason why we have something like this is because typically with win rates, for example, 50%, you can have something like a 2R. And the great thing about that is if you risk $500, in order to get to a profit target of $3,000, it simply means that we have to win only 3 times. And for those who have something like a 70% win rate, more likely you are trading with a 1R. So that means that on average, it might take you about 3 trades or 3 winning trades to pass the account. For those who have something like a 30 to a 40% win rate, your R might be closer to around 3 to 5R per trade. So in that case, again, you can see the pattern here. It takes you about 3 winning trades to actually pass. And as you can see, those who have higher win rates and lower R ratios, they just have a more tendency to actually pass their accounts quicker. So this in general is how I structure my risk per trade because I don't really want to be spending that long in the evaluation stage. So I'm not taking something like the drawdown, like 2,000, and then dividing it by something like 8 or 10 trades, because in that case, it would just take me way too long, maybe like over 10 trading days just to actually pass the account. So we want to be somewhat speedy when it comes to the actual evaluation stage so that we can use as many winning days as possible towards the payouts. So I'm going to be hopping over to Claude and I'm going to be typing out a simple prompt so that it can run simulations and we can actually have a good, accurate depiction of the probabilities of passing the account. So now that we have our statistics, I ran over into Claude and I'm typing in a super simple prompt like I'm trading prop firms, I have a 50% win rate, take 1 trade a day, my wins are about 2R, my losses are about negative 1R, I risk about $500 per day. The account I'm attempting to pass has an end of day drawdown, and I just explain the drawdown super quickly. It locks at $0, and then I tell it my profit target in order to pass the evaluation, and then I simply ask it what are the odds that I pass an evaluation, and around on average, how long will it take, just so I can have an estimation of the amount of calendar days that it would take in order for me to actually pass. And I'm still waiting right now. Okay, so now we finally got the results. It says that it can be about 72 to 83%, but based on the actual rules, it is going to be closer to about 73%. And then there's just a bunch of more stuff over here that Claude talks about. So now that we got these statistics, this will essentially take me on average about 2 weeks to pass. And I have somewhere along the lines of a 73% pass rate. And then with this 73%, we are going to take how much the eval costed. So for this example, we'll say something along the lines of $100 just to make math super simple. And then we take that $100 and then divide it by the pass rate. So $100 divided by 0.73. And if you punch this into a calculator, you'll get somewhere around $137. So $137 is the true cost, not this $100 that you have to actually pay per eval. So the reason why this is super important to actually calculate this is because you want to know with a degree of certainty how much is it actually costing you per attempt, per account. And then once you actually calculate the fact that, oh, it literally just cost me $137 on average to get funded, maybe $2,000 in drawdown, then you have an actual good mental picture in your head, the actual dollars that you are risking, not some simple $100 or like $50 sale. And now for step number 5, we are going to trade the eval and take trades that align with your setup. And that is the number 1 key. Take the trades that align with your setup. You don't have to force anything. You just have to do the right things. Remember, we already calculated it. With our specific statistics, there's already something like a 73% chance of passing if we just follow the plan. So 73%, that means that the odds are pretty much in your favor. Now, obviously, in the eval stage, let's say we have the same exact statistics, so about 50% and 2R. If you want to increase the odds that you actually pass your evaluation, let's say that you're really strapped on cash, then if you reduce how much you're risking per trade, so remember we were risking $500 and then you reduce it to something like $300, then yes, this pass rate up here, 73%, is going to go closer to maybe like 80 something percent. But in general though, there is an opportunity cost for staying in the evaluation stage for too long, because if you go on something like a 10 trade winning streak or a 10-day winning streak, if you risk a little bit, this might only get you passing the eval. But if you are risking a lot more, then this 10 days, maybe only 5 days to pass the eval, and then the other 5 would be used to actually get your payout. And then one other key pointer that I want to stress out is that if the account is blown, it's totally okay. Remember, in our example, there's a 73% chance that we pass. 1 in every 4 times, we can do everything right, and we're still going to fail or blow the account. And that exactly is why we have, and again, in step 1, we have our max drawdown that we are willing to risk on prop firms. So, for example, if you have something like $1,000, you have a 50% chance to actually pass your funded account, and you're spending $500 on every single set of evals. Like, this is not within your favor. You are probably going to blow it. But if you do have $1,000 and let's say the same exact trading statistics, and you have about a 70% chance that you pass the evaluation stage, if you're only risking something like $100 per eval, man, the odds are incredibly within your favor that you actually do pass the account. That means that you have to be so incredibly unlucky with a 70% chance of passing an eval for $100 to not get anything all the way up until you blow the $1,000 over here. So you want to budget in accordance to how much funds you have available to actually be trading in prop firms. Okay, so now step number 6, once you have passed the eval and you are now on the funded stage, you are going to want to take a payout as soon as you can. Now, I know this is a little bit controversial because some people recommend that you wait until the max payout. This all kind of depends on your specific strategy, but in our case and the simulations that I ran on something like Claude, more often than not, it says that the best thing to do is just to take payouts as soon as you can. So for example, one of the accounts might have something like 5 days of $150 and you can only withdraw 50% of your account balance. More often than not, it is actually the best thing to withdraw 50% as soon as you're able to. So some of them have something like a $2,000 max payout. This is something on like a 50K account. And even if the account balance isn't at $4,000, because $4,000 is how you get $2,000 payout, if the account balance is only at maybe around $3,000, the best thing to do is just to take 50% and actually take that payout of $1,500, because you won't believe how many times people are sitting at $3,000. They try to get to $4,000 so they can get the extra, $500, but this $3,000 just ends up going or getting blown into $0. So you'd rather secure the money while it's already in your account and while you already can, than try to basically risk $1,500 for $2,000. Like, that is not a good trade. So yeah, again, if you're in the funded stage and you end up blowing your account, that's okay. Let's actually run the numbers. So I hopped over into Claude. I pretty much explained the rules of this specific prop firm, which is the Elite Futures 50K accounts. So I inputted all of that, and then I asked it, what is the probability of, once I'm funded, actually taking a payout, assuming that I just withdraw the most that I can once I'm eligible. So I went ahead and pressed enter, and we're going to see the exact probabilities of actually taking a payout once we're funded. So now that we have the numbers, we're going to read this out. So if you were to cash out at your first eligibility, so in this case it's 5 winning days over $150, the chance of getting paid out is 74.4%, meaning that basically around 7 out of every 10 funded accounts do result in getting paid out. And the average payout amount is $1,538, meaning that on average, the account balance would be sitting around $3,060 or $76 at the time of getting paid out. And on average, it takes about 9 days. And we're going to be hopping back into the Miro board to actually calculate something really essential, which I feel like is super key for anyone who's trading prop firms. So let's go ahead and again, write out the probabilities of passing an eval. That is about 73%. And then for payouts, once we pass and get funded, the probabilities is about 74%. And then what you can do is take these two numbers and multiply them together. So 0.73 times 0.74 is about 54%. So what does this mean? This means that for each eval that we buy, there is a 54% chance that on average, we get paid out $1,500, around there. It's like 1538, but we'll just say $1,500. And do you remember the cost of the eval? Like not the expected cost, but the actual cost? It's $100. $100 has a 54% chance to get turned into $1,500. That is crazy. Like, I don't think a lot of you guys have actually calculated the probabilities, but like, if you understand that maybe 1 in every 2 evals that you buy, so long as you follow the plan, 100 can turn to 1,500 basically half of the time. Isn't that crazy? Like, prop firms are insane, right? But most people don't end up calculating the probabilities. And because of that, they don't have a good idea in their mind of whether or not this shit is actually possible. So what do? They end up, revenge trading, they end up over risking, or worse yet, they actually get extremely fearful when they take something like a loss on their funded accounts because they don't understand that when you are funded, there already is something like a 70% chance that you get a payout. So in that case, there's not much of a reason to really be super stressed out over what is going to happen. You can see how once you know the probabilities and the expected value of trading prop firms, there's no need to stress over the outcome of the specific account or the outcome of a specific trade. All you have to do is follow your plan. That's literally it. And I did want to bridge this back. So if each eval has a 54% chance that you get paid out $1,500, that means that if you're risking maybe like $100 out of your $1,000, like $1,000 is your overall cash balance for prop firms, like what are the odds that at the end of 10 attempts, you don't get a payout? If each eval you buy has a 54% chance, that's basically a coin landing on heads 10 times in a row. Like even if you do end up winning on the very last eval, you do realize that like that $100 turns to $1,500. Like you still actually made money if that 10th attempt, if you lost 9 attempts and you won the last one, you'd still be making money. I kind of went off track there, but essentially you want to have at least enough ammo in the tank. So in this case, if it's a 54% chance, like the odds of us getting a payout from every batch of like 100, because there's 10 of them, basically, it's so incredibly high that like, how can you not make money with prop firms? The only time that you don't end up making money is when you don't follow your plan, and then rather than only spending $100 per eval, you end up blowing that eval, and you think to yourself, you know what? Let's get everything back. So let's buy 2 evaluations. Let's spend $200. You blow that in a single day, and then that ends up turning into $500 that you end up risking the following day. So you can see how, yes, this $1,000 can make you a lot of money, but you still just have to be willing to follow the plan, which is also why we calculated about how many days on average it takes you to pass the account and also to take the payouts so that you have some form of understanding of like, yeah, this is a statistical game. Like over time, we are just going to make money. We don't have to be making money at this very instant. Right. So I know it might have sounded like I'm angry, but I wasn't. I was just a bit more passionate talking about this because it totally changed my trading once I understood statistics and once I understood the fact that, okay, this shit works. I just literally have to execute my plan. Like that fixed so many psychology problems. So that's why I was a lot more like amped up. But anyways, step number 7, you want to continue trading the account until you blow up. You don't want to copy trade your evals and your funded accounts at the very same time, because when you end up going through a drawdown, you just end up losing everything. And all it takes is one tilt day for all of the accounts that you built and you bought to actually end up going down. So at least if you get to the funded stage and then you do take, 1 payout or maybe even 2 payouts, you basically covered all your losses and now you're just trading with the house money. It's kind of like you go to the casino, you put in $100 into roulette, it ends up turning into $200. You end up doubling that again to $400. And then you simply are walking away with $200 in your pocket. Maybe this can turn into something like $1,000, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter if you lose all this because guess what? You still won. You still are up $100. So that's kind of the same thing that you want to do with prop firms. You don't want to be risking everything all at once. You want to give yourself something that you can walk away with. So in this case, it's protecting yourself, not buying new evals, but rather buying new evals once you blew up everything. And of course, this differs for each person and each strategy, but I'm just talking about this from personal experience because yeah, I have lost evals while copy trading funded and I just lost everything and had to just restart from zero. So you'd rather just have a whole fresh new start by trading new evals once these funded accounts are blown. Okay, now we are going on to step 8, which is reinvesting your capital. You can just go to AI, type out the new accounts that you're planning to scale with, type out how much of a buffer you're willing to invest into these prop firms, and then just ask it what are the probabilities of actually getting payouts. And then based on that and based on how much cash you have, just reinvest, but don't reinvest like a dumbass. Because then you'll see something like, wow, $500 in new evals can easily be turned to 10K payouts. That's insane. But then you realize that you have something like only maybe $2,000 and you try to flip $2,000 into $10,000 and then you just end up blowing all of, $500 attempts when you only have $2,000. So in reality, you still want to accept that we are living in a world of probabilities, so try to prepare for the worst. Like for example, if you have a 30% chance of turning $100 for the eval and then receiving a $1,000 payout, should you be risking $500 out of your $2,000 right here? It's probably not worth it to do that. And also what I mean by that is you have $100 per eval, and then let's say you have a budget of $500, so that means you buy 5 of the accounts and then you copy trade them. So yeah, do not do this. You still want to be conservative because the only thing that keeps you from making money is when you run out of money to actually invest. But yeah, for step number 9, you're just going to be scaling, repeating the process. Keynotes here, make sure that each decision you do is always based on the probabilities. Alongside this, if there's no probability proof, your execution will leak. Like even if you backtested the win rate and then the R multiple of, your strategy on live, that doesn't always transfer over into prop firms because you're kind of dealing with essentially a new strategy. So just because you backtested your edge once doesn't mean that that same consistent execution is going to transfer over into prop firms. So you still need to be calculating all of these probabilities. It just so happens that, you do need the backtested edge and statistics in order to calculate the prop firm statistics. And lastly, final reminder, this only works if you are consistent with your plan first. So this means about 1 to 3 months of not breaking any of your major rules. Again, on average, depends on how frequent you're trading and it depends on the statistics. But let's say it takes on average maybe 5 days to pass an eval. And then once I'm funded, it takes me 9 days to get that payout. That means that it could take me about a month, about 3 to 4 weeks of consistent trading in order to actually get that payout. So if I can't even execute for like 1 to 3 months consistently, then no, it doesn't matter how good the return on investment is. It doesn't matter how good the probabilities are. I'm still going to be blowing my account on just unnecessary trades. So you still want to be extremely calculated and disciplined when it comes to this plan. But if you do, you can literally calculate it all out, but the return is just insane. So try and do your part of consistently executing, and the payouts are just going to be inevitable. And if you are someone who trades prop firms, but you struggle to consistently take payouts and you'd like my own personal help, then click the link in my bio and we can schedule a call and I'll personally help you out on there.